Tonight, the table is set with peace on the horizon.
Last night, we reached a momentous breakthrough in the Middle East, something that people said was never going to be done.
The details behind the historic deal set to bring peace to Israel and Gaza after 2 years of war.
And as the families of Hamas hostages see glimmers of hope, an October 7th survivor shares his haunting ordeal with CBN News.
Loads of humiliations on a daily basis, loads of psychological terror against us, from time to time violence. You're chained most of the time.
Inside his fight to stay alive and his message to the world. Plus,
Day 9 of the government shutdown. A look at the economic fallout and widespread impact on American households. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
well, both joy and relief sweeping across Israel tonight as hostage families count down the final moments until their loved ones are finally home. Good evening. I'm John Jessup.
And in Washington, I'm Jenna Browder. Well, after 2 years of bloodshed, terror, and grief, a historic deal is now in motion.
Israel and Hamas today officially agreeing to the first phase of a peace plan, one that could end the war in Gaza and bring dozens of Israeli hostages home. President Trump calling the deal a step towards, quote, everlasting peace. And tonight, an emotional message from a mother who's been waiting more than 2 years now for her son to come home.
My life, your big brother is coming back home. These are cheers of joy, of excitement. I wish Matan sees us now, so excited, crying, and waiting for him.
Here is a ceasefire timeline once in effect. Beginning Friday, Israel would start pulling back some troops, but still would maintain a military presence over roughly half of Gaza. President Trump is expected to arrive in the region on Sunday with possible visits to the Israeli Knesset and perhaps even Gaza. By Monday or Tuesday, Hamas would be required to release all the living hostages, although that could happen sooner. The remains of the deceased could take longer as they're believed to be buried under rubble in Gaza. In return, Israel would release nearly 2,000 Palestinians, including some women and children detained during the conflict. And finally, humanitarian aid and deliveries into Gaza will resume. In Gaza, celebrations breaking out in the streets.
Hopefully this ceasefire will hold forever. The war will not return, and we will live in safety and peace.
While the deal marks a major step forward, it is still unclear whether some of the toughest questions have been answered, including who will govern Gaza and whether Hamas will disarm.
Well, Jonathan Sayed joins us now. He is a research analyst at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Jonathan, welcome. So we've, of course, seen previous deals that have fallen apart. Jonathan, what is different about this one?
It is truly a historic moment, but perhaps three main topics differentiate this deal from previous ones. One is the fact that this deal, compared to the previous one, has a comprehensive vision. It has a long-term vision for the Gaza Strip. It is beyond, at least the intent is beyond just a prisoner swap or a short-term ceasefire. It actually has a reconstruction plan after Hamas is defeated or is disarmed. The other angle from this is that it also is inclusive of our allies. It has an international consortium that would be aiding this process, going beyond just our transatlantic allies and our regional allies as well. And the third and the most important, it actually calls for a full disarmament of Hamas, and that is truly extraordinary.
You say that it's both comprehensive and inclusive. You do mention the disarmament. Publicly, it makes no mention of Hamas's future in politics or weapons disarmament. Do you think that could potentially be a stumbling block in the next phase of the peace agreement?
That continues to be the main challenge with any terrorist group, whether it's going to be Hamas or Iran-backed militias in Iraq or even Hezbollah in Lebanon. However, when we're dealing with these entities, one issue is the intent. Terrorist groups are not going to disabandon their long-term vision that is inherently anti-American and anti-Jewish. But also the other challenge is the source of these funding. So the weapons that are coming from the Islamic Republic of Iran, so long as that supply chain is still in effect, that will continue to pose a challenge for any intent of disarmament.
Yeah. So Israel is more isolated today than it was 2 years ago. Hamas is very much weakened and its leadership is really hollowed out. Jonathan, what do both sides gain in all of this?
When we talk about Hamas, of course, they're able to receive many of their prisoners, most of whom that are actually terrorists or are serving life sentences. So they're able to get that back. They will have a chance, their leadership, at least on paper, has the opportunity to leave Gaza if they desire. On the other hand, for Israelis, it's more of a political thing for Netanyahu's coalition. And now that he's able to deliver of his long promise of actually returning the hostages, that is a huge political win, and it lifts a lot of the pressure off of his administration, which means now he can actually focus on other foreign policy issues that are still linked to the Islamic Republic, that are still tied to Hamas.
Jonathan, I wonder if you could revisit for us what Hamas's goal was 2 years ago, because as Jenna was just saying, they're incredibly weakened. A lot of their leadership is now gone. Gaza has now been destroyed. It's in rubble. So their objectives, what do they gain?
As you accurately pointed out, prosperity of the Gaza Strip has never been part of Hamas's agenda. It's debatable whether, to begin with, they were expecting such a retaliation from Israel or not. But ultimately, I think a lot of the focus when it comes to the Palestinian issue was centered around the West Bank. Gaza was not as much of a topic of conversation, and the region was more and more open to normalizing with Israel. And that was the exact intent from Hamas, to, again, resurge the Palestinian issue in disguised, again, you know, when we talk about Hamas, again, portrayed as a Palestinian cause, whereas it's really about Hamas, and to further isolate Israel from its regional partners to deter the future of the Abraham Accords. But with this plan being in place, that is looking a bit more optimistic for us to actually see normalization between Israel and ideally our Persian Gulf allies.
So President Trump, he heads to Israel this weekend, and he may address the Knesset, Israel's parliament. He has been involved in multiple peace efforts around the globe. Jonathan, how much credit does President Trump deserve?
Plenty. So it's because of this administration that they were able to both incentivize and compel Hamas to at least agree to release the hostages. And they were able to do that. One, of course, it was a diplomatic breakthrough, but the buildup towards it was this administration's strategy to ensure that we can, in fact, support our allies during a war. And that has been a fruitful strategy. We've seen the results of that. Backing Israel in this context actually helped us to get back the hostages and get an inch closer towards a potential deal. We've seen the similar situation happen when, under this administration, we struck the Iranian nuclear facilities as well. So it just goes to show that by leveraging proper diplomatic and military means, we're able to have breakthroughs anywhere in the world, really.
All right, Jonathan Sayed, thank you so much for being with us tonight and helping share your expertise.
Thank you for having me.
And coming up, from a peaceful kibbutz to a tunnel deep under Gaza, Eli Sharabi held hostage for more than 400 days, his powerful journey to freedom after this.
491 days underground, terror, unimaginable loss and survival. That's what Eli Sharabi endured after Hamas kidnapped him and murdered his family during the October 7th massacre.
Yeah, today, he is a free man, picking up the pieces of his life. He tells CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl how he survived and also how he's choosing healing over hate.
Eli Sharabi moved to Kibbutz Be'eri as a teenager and would later meet his wife Leanne there. Founded in 1946, before the State of Israel, Be'eri was one of the harder-hit Gaza border communities on October 7th.
So that was our dream when we raised, family, and they grew up there, and they were very, very happy. But until our heaven became hell on October 7th.
Alarms began around 6:30 a.m., and before long, they understood something unusual was happening.
We got a message from the emergency team of the kibbutz that says that we need to stay in a safe room because they're suspicious of Hamas terrorists infiltrated Be'eri.
At 10:45, 10 terrorists broke into their home. As the terrorists fired, Eli and Leanne covered their girls with their bodies. Shortly after, they kidnapped Eli and took him into Gaza.
So I just shouted to the girls, I'll be back, and I haven't seen, that's the last moment I've seen them. If I only knew, I would say loads of things differently and maybe act differently, I don't know.
More than 130 were murdered from Kibbutz Be'eri, including Eli's wife Leanne and teenage daughters Noya and Yahel. For the first 52 days, Hamas kept Eli in a home with a fellow hostage, a Thai worker from the kibbutz. Then came a ceasefire.
In the first ceasefire, they thought it's a good opportunity to take me to the tunnels because it was a ceasefire.
They took Eli to a mosque and inside opened a trap door.
I refused in the beginning. It looked like the perfect grave for me. No air, darkness all around you. But they pointed the gun towards me, to my head, and then I remember the promise I made to my girls that I'll come back. So I chose life again.
After descending more than 150 feet underground, he met other hostages and spent nearly 15 months living in tunnels.
All these times, it's loads of humiliations on a daily basis, loads of psychological terror against us, from time to time violence. You're chained most of the time. The hygienic condition is horrific. Every 6 weeks you have a bath with a half bucket of cold water, almost no soap, no toothpaste, no running water.
Eli studied Arabic, so in captivity he could translate for the other hostages.
But you made some important decisions when you were down there about survival. You said in your book you were a little bit older than the other 3 men you were with, and you kind of became like a father figure and an encourager for them.
I need to walk every day about their face because it's very, in all this darkness, to find some light. It's not easy, but it's very important. It's there. You just need to look for the light. So I try to force them every night before we were going to sleep to find something, one thing that good happened to them in the same day. And I knew it's like a muscle that you need to train.
Though not religious, Eli knew some Jewish prayers by heart.
But the second they pushed me into the back of the car, when they kidnapped me, I started to say Shema Israel. I don't know why.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one.
I didn't stop to say that for 491 days since. After that, I met Eliyahu Cohen that knew the prayers of the morning. So it was very good to open your day like that.
I know it was a horrible, horrible situation there, but did you feel God at all? Did you feel like He was with you at all?
It was, I think, more than 10 times, which was situations that between life and death in a second. And after you pass all these situations and you stay alive, you start to believe. You just believe that someone is protecting you and want you alive. Because of that, when I'm released, for me it's a second chance, and I'm grateful for that. Well, I'm grateful for loads of things. I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful to be free.
On February 8, 2025, Eli was released in a televised ceremony. Weighing less than 100 pounds, he was initially reunited with his mother and sister. That's when he learned the terrorists had murdered his wife and 2 daughters on October 7th and kidnapped and killed his brother Yossi and held his body in captivity.
Still people there after more than 700 days. One of them is my brother. And I'm lucky to have Leanne for 28 years. I'm lucky to have my daughters for 16 and 13 years. I was very lucky to live in the same kibbutz with my brother and have a great life with him. And I'm so lucky that I had my family that fought for me for 500 days.
Eli says it wouldn't be right to let grief overtake him after all the efforts made to free him.
First of all, I love life. For me, I got a second chance. Despite the very, very difficult messages I got until the day of my release about Yossi, about Leanne, Noya, and Yahel, it's tremendous loss for me. But I needed to choose if to let the grief and the loss to bury me, to wrap me, or to find a way to move on.
Shortly after Eli's release, he wrote a book about his experience. His book, called Hostage, is the first from a hostage about what happened. It's a bestseller in Hebrew and now is translated into English and on the way to other languages.
It was a very therapeutic process for me, and I felt this testimony should be heard and should be written for the history of Israel, for my history.
Despite the treatment he received, Eli wants people to take something positive from his book.
The main thing is appreciation for basic things in your life, because when you lose your freedom, you understand freedom, it's priceless.
Eli is using his voice and experience to let world leaders know what really happened.
Places like to be in UN, to make a speech there in Security Council for 20 minutes and give them all the facts that I've seen. It was very, very meaningful for me.
Maybe most important is that he's not dealing with negative emotions.
I'm not bitter. Words like sadness and anger, it's not something I'm dealing with day by day, because I feel that these emotions and feelings can hold me back, and I just want to move forward and to rebuild my life. And I think this is the best way my wife and my daughters and my brother will be proud of me.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Israel.
Well, great interview, and what a way to honor your family. Well, up next, the shutdown fight with no end in sight, how the chaos at the U.S. Capitol could affect your wallet and the overall economy. Next.
Welcome back. On Capitol Hill, lawmakers are grappling for control in a standoff that continues more than a week into the government shutdown.
And that is where we find our very own Michelle London. She's been keeping track of the ongoing shutdown saga. So, London, is there any new movement on Capitol Hill? Tell us, what's the latest?
Well, John Jenna, good evening to you. Emotions are high here on the Hill today. Senators failed yet again to advance Republicans' stopgap funding bill in a 54-45 vote. Republicans need 60 votes, which would include 8 Democrats to advance this bill. Instead, only 3 Democrat senators today, including John Fetterman and Catherine Cortez Masto, voted with most Republicans. Rand Paul was the only GOP senator voting against the measure.
Michelle, Speaker Johnson, he now appears to be holding daily press conferences, updating reporters on the status of what's now day 9 in the shutdown. It seems like he's trying to really set the narrative here and get his message out.
You're right, and Johnson's pressers now have a theme that's called the Democrat shutdown. Johnson is really looking to drive home the point that a lack of Democratic support is what's now halting vital services for many Americans and the military members, including personnel as well as Border Patrol agents, TSA air traffic controllers, all currently working without pay. Today, he was joined by the chairman of House Veterans Affairs Committee, Illinois Congressman Mike Bost, who spoke on the pain veterans are currently starting to face. Listen.
Veterans are trying to make ends meet. Day to day, they're trying to hold on to their benefits. And day to day, they keep hearing these concerns, and they're going to continue to get worse.
London, on the topic of military families, some lawmakers I know have been pushing for a separate measure that would guarantee uninterrupted pay for service members. Is that getting any traction with leadership?
Well, first, let me just say, even as Republican GOP Rep Jen Kiggins is actually sponsoring this bill, Johnson is not convinced. The speaker continues to reject suggestions for the House to return next week and vote on a standalone bill to assure military pay. It's happening as some military families brace for their paychecks not to arrive on October 15th. But as for Democrats, they want health care provisions included in Republicans' temporary spending bill. And when enrollment begins in less than 3 weeks, some working class families could start to receive notices about massive increases included in their premiums for next year. Especially if Obamacare subsidies aren't extended. Earlier, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries attended an interfaith conference. He referenced a New Testament passage. Take a listen.
What we're dealing with right now in the United States Congress is a group of people who we sometimes say they go to church and they pray on Sunday. But then they come to Washington, D.C., and they pray, P-R-E-Y, on the American people for the rest of the week. Pray on the poor, pray on the sick, pray on the afflicted.
Michelle, over to Wall Street, some investors are wondering whether the impact of the shutdown may have an effect on the stock market. What can you tell us about that?
Well, for the past month, the three main stock indexes, the Dow Jones Industrial, S&P 500, and tech-heavy NASDAQ have all been trading at record highs. But Jamie Dimon, the chief executive of J.P. Morgan Chase, is sounding the alarm about our financial standings in this country, telling Bloomberg the fears that he fears the U.S. might slide into a recession come 2026, and he criticized the economic impact of the government shutdowns.
All right. Jenna. 9 days and counting. Capitol Hill correspondent Michelle London. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you.
Coming up, move over Charlie Brown. There's a new great pumpkin squashing records. Next on Faith Nation.
Finally tonight, the world's largest pumpkin is smashing records.
After years, and I mean years of trying, two siblings from England have claimed the record. Twins Ian and Stuart Patton have been growing pumpkins together for more than 50 years, starting when they were just teens. They've come close to breaking records for size and weight several times before, but this year's masterpiece wasn't even close. At a record giant gourd weigh-off, get this, their pumpkin came in at nearly 3,000 pounds, boasting a circumference of over 21 feet. That's bigger than most people's waistlines. That makes it the heaviest and largest in the world. Footage shows the pumpkin being lifted by a crane at Sunnyfields Farms in southern England, where the pumpkin is now on display. I don't think that would make a great jack-o'-lantern. I don't know about you.
It'd be a very odd-looking jack. It looks like somebody dropped it from, way up high, and it kind of already splat.
I also don't know if that would make for a good pumpkin spice latte. I don't know.
I don't know, or pie.
Thanks so much for watching.
Have a good night.